Welcome, and thank you for agreeing to provide pro bono advice via free legal answers. Your commitment to providing pro bono limited services is greatly appreciated. The following video provides a short general presentation on the ethics of providing limited scope advice. The presentation is based on the American Bar Association Model Rules of Professional Conduct. You should be aware of any variation from the model rules your jurisdiction might have. The ethics relating to providing limited scope services is not very different than that of providing full representation. There are, however, some important ethical considerations when providing limited scope services. Free Legal Answers was designed to provide online advice to individuals on a limited basis. It is not meant to be used for ongoing advice. The malpractice coverage that is provided to pro bono attorneys through Free Legal Answers covers brief advice provided to an individual via the online program and not any communication outside the use of the program. If you decide to provide assistance to an individual outside the program, you will not be covered by the malpractice insurance provided to participating attorneys by Free Legal Answers. In that event, you must be covered by your own malpractice insurance, and the individual must be informed that you are providing pro bono assistance on your own and not through Free Legal Answers. You must provide competent advice to individuals seeking assistance on Free Legal Answers. If the individual you are assisting requires advice on an issue that you are not competent to address, do not provide advice until you have the knowledge and skill necessary to provide the assistance. A lawyer may limit the scope of representation if the limitation is reasonable and the client gives informed consent. Individuals who use Free Legal Answers are required to agree to the limits of the services provided by Free Legal Answers attorneys by checking off an informed consent agreement. However, before providing advice, you should confirm with the individual that he or she understands the limit of the services that will be provided. Providing limited services is only reasonable if the individual is capable of understanding the limited advice. It is difficult to determine if it is reasonable to provide brief advice to an individual you are responding to online. If it is clear by the nature of the questions or responses that the person is not capable of understanding the advice, do not provide advice, but instead refer the individual to an appropriate program. In some instances, it may not be reasonable to provide limited advice on an issue because it is too complicated, or it is inextricably connected to other legal issues that can't be responded to reasonably online. In that case, refer the individual to an appropriate program. For example, a client tells you that she is having a dispute with her employer and wants to leave her job. She needs to know what terms to include in a proposed separation agreement. You may be able to help her draft a general release or other straightforward terms. However, if she owns shares of company stock that she needs to sell back to the company before departing, there are tax implications. She may also need advice from a tax lawyer on how to treat any payments that may be made to her under the agreement. In another example, you receive a call from a client who wants to know whether he has a viable malpractice claim. You will not be able to make the determination without reviewing the relevant medical files. If you tell him that you don't think he has a good claim, you run the risk that he will rely on that advice and fail to file before the statute of limitations runs. If that happens, and it turns out he actually had a good claim, he may try to hold you responsible. The better course here is to make very clear that you cannot offer advice. There are some limitations to responding to individuals online. Free Legal Answers is meant to be used when brief advice or information is possible. Your explanation of a matter should be reasonable based on the limitations in responding to an individual by an online response. Except for the exceptions listed, you must not reveal the information provided to you by an individual you are assisting unless the individual gives you informed consent. Please take a moment and review these exceptions. In providing advice to individuals via free legal answers, you may provide services only if you have no actual knowledge of a conflict of interest pursuant to 1.7 or 1.9. Actual knowledge of a conflict of interest means either that you know you personally have a conflict in representing the client, or you know that another lawyer in your firm would be disqualified from representing the client under either Rule 1.7 or 1.9. If you decide that you wish to provide more than brief advice to the individual outside of the confines of the free legal answers, you must disclose to the individual that your services are then not provided via the free legal answers, but rather either by you individually or by your law firm. The individual must be clearly informed that Online Justice is no longer responsible for any service you might provide, but that you or your law firm are responsible. This presentation provides an introduction to the ethical issues involved when providing advice via free legal answers. You should seek further information from the appropriate entity in your locality if necessary. Once again, thank you for agreeing to provide pro bono services via free legal answers. Free Legal Answers thanks Katie Lachter, Esquire, for her assistance in preparing this presentation.